Here's an interesting video I wanted to comment on the Martial Arts Journey channel, which is done in collaboration with Jeff Chan, Icy Mike, Ramsey Dewey, Sensei Seth, and Matt Clinton. This is about knife defense. And a lot of people tend to downplay it. There's so many hokey self-defense experts who claim to teach you how to disarm a knife or otherwise defeat a knife attacker. So this is a great setup where you have a defender and an attacker in a closed room. Running away is not an option. That would normally be the preferred option. And the attacker has a marker instead of a knife to be safe enough to be able to just go crazy.
Each participant will enter a padded room where they will be joined by a single attacker carrying a marker representing a knife. The contender will then have to defend against the knife attacker for 20 seconds, 4 times in a row.
That's a lot, by the way. 20 seconds doesn't sound like much, but 20 seconds at that kind of intensity feels more like 20 minutes.
I wasn't feeling good. When you're not feeling good physically, it puts a huge damper over how you're feeling every other way.
That's a good point. Now, even though personally I don't consider myself a martial artist, especially these days when I have health issues and I'm not in good shape, I've done enough armed martial arts to know that the stress reduces your endurance so much. Even when I was at my best shape, I was very much familiar with how much of a difference it makes when you have an off day, when you just don't feel right, and for whatever reason, something is off and your performance is slashed in half or worse. In a realistic self-defense scenario, you can't be like, oh, hang on a moment, I gotta do some dynamic stretching, let me go to the bathroom first, and all of this stuff. It's just boom, you're in. It's on. So those markers indicate whether it would be a lethal wound or not. And even if you have a bunch of technically non-lethal wounds, they're of course going to reduce your ability to fight back, and you might succumb to a death by 1,000 cuts or stabs. Now, there's one attempt to stay out of grappling range, that one kick, but the problem is the knife attacker has really no deterrent. So if you're unarmed and the attacker has a knife, they're not afraid of you. Like, they can tank a punch or a kick or whatever. Their main objective is rush in and go to town. And what can you do about that? If you're really good at grappling, you have a chance. But even then, even when the two are so entangled that it's not possible to throw proper punches or even elbows or knees, a knife can still do a lot of damage. Because even just this, this, of course, would not be a punch at all, but that's a problem already. Or just dragging the edge across. There's so much that you can do even with really limited movements. This is already dangerous.
Held the hand that the knife was in, thinking, all I need to do is hold you here for a couple of seconds. I don't even need to hit you. And then I feel this little on the other side. What are you doing? Oh, the marker's on the other side. You changed hands.
I've seen that a lot in knife defense videos where, in sparring, somebody's hand is being restrained and they just go, never mind. And that's where you're just... In that situation, if you're on the ground, the guy's on top and just keep stabbing. What are you supposed to do? Dragon Ball style key explosion? Just blast him away with your aura? Even trying to use the environment doesn't help a whole lot. The problem is you can't afford at all to end up at grappling distance, but how do you stay away? Because there's nothing really that you can do to prevent them from just rushing in recklessly.
Worst thing, I've hated every moment.
If you didn't hate every moment, it wouldn't be realistic self-defense.
It's incredibly frustrating when somebody's doing something against your will and you can do nothing about it.
That's a problem when you're unarmed. Basically, the best chance is to take out the armed attacker before they can do a whole lot, which is not easy with bare hands and feet. Unless you just manage to score the perfect roundhouse kick to the head that they just run right into and that knocks them out and drops them right then and there. Really, the way I see it, when there is an armed confrontation in a place where you can't escape, You can't de-escalate, you can't get away, you can't avoid it. You have to defend yourself. Basically, your only chance that I see is to have a weapon yourself. Ideally, one with more reach. But even if you just have another knife or dagger, that stops this whole thing, this whole death train rushing in and steamrolling you, because they can't do that anymore. Yeah. It was a good attempt. You know, that's generally the idea, something you see a lot in knife defense, which makes sense on paper. Use kicks because kicks have a greater reach than the arm with a knife. Yeah. But that only goes so far. So far we've only seen 2 or 3 kicks, and then this happens again. Yeah, even then. That was a great round, but even then there were a lot of injuries. It's... I'm gonna say this is gonna be impossible. I don't think any one of these guys is gonna score points, really. Not because I doubt their abilities, but because this is such an impossible thing to do.
I hit a hip toss on him, and I land a crucifix somehow.
You got stabbed multiple times in vital areas, leaving him with 1 more 0.
Yeah, I mean, he did so well, and still. Oh, nice. Even so. That was a great takedown that came out of nowhere. That was such a good start. But like, how are you supposed to just completely immobilize the arm? Nice kick. I don't think you can do much better. I'm not going to show you every single one because you're supposed to watch their video if you haven't yet. Of course, link down below, by the way. But just one more. Let's see how it goes. Yeah, as soon as it ends up in the corner, it's tough. You can't even always see where the knife is. And of course, when you're that focused on just getting control of the arm with the knife, you're not attacking. Like, you're not threatening them as such. But you have to, because otherwise you're kind of dead. Oh. Yeah, this is impossible. I don't think this can be done. Really, the only way I see this happening is if the defender is a lot more physically fit and more skilled than the attacker. Then okay. If they're comparable, it's too much of a disadvantage. Well, one of them did actually score more than 0 points, which I really didn't expect. I'm not gonna spoil it, just watch the video if you haven't yet. But this was really interesting to see, and again just shows how pretty much impossible unarmed defense against a knife attack is. Now, this setup, in all fairness, is a little bit biased against the defender, because there is a failure condition, being stabbed too many times or slashed or whatever, but there's no fail state for the attacker other than the time limit. So somebody might be able to knock them out, but you wouldn't be able to figure that out here, because the protective gear is supposed to avoid that, and you're just not supposed to go quite that crazy. At least I'm assuming they didn't go 100% for safety reasons. So that's always a bit of a question mark. Anyway, this casts a lot of doubt on just about any knife defense technique you see, both modern and historical. Because there are also medieval manuscripts that show you how to defend against a dagger attack unarmed. I made a video about that with certain disclaimers, and it works in theory. That's basically what I pointed out. On paper, it makes perfect sense. The technique should work, but then in the chaos of getting rushed like this, it might not. Whereas the dagger versus dagger techniques I see is more viable because there isn't going to be this sort of rush. Again, unless the opponent is completely insane or drugged or who knows what, they're not going to want to charge in, because then they would be in the same situation. It would most likely be more cautious, methodical. The arms would be targeted more because deep targets like The upper body and throat would be too dangerous for yourself because then you can also get stabbed in those areas. So yeah, the best chance to survive a knife attack is to have a sword or some other longer weapon that's effective enough. A baton or a baseball bat, that gets a little bit questionable. Like, would a blunt weapon stop them as effectively? Would they be as afraid of it? Would it really prevent them from rushing in? Because even if you have a longer weapon, once they're in grappling range, you might still end up in the same kind of situation as this. But yeah, that's much more of a chance. Or just, shoot them, I guess. Anyway, hope you found this interesting and entertaining. Thanks for watching. Again, check out Martial Arts Journey down below. And take care. Don't get stabbed.